On the evening of March 7th, 2024, my daughter sat across from me at the dinner table I'd bought at a yard sale in 1989 and said, "Mama, Carlton and I have been thinking. We really believe it might be time for you to start considering a senior living community." That's how it started. Not with a fight, not with raised voices, just my daughter's voice, carefully measured, like she'd been rehearsing it in the car on the way over, and Carlton beside her, not looking at me, studying his fork. I set down my glass of sweet tea, the same sweet tea I'd been making for 40 years, 2 bags, a cup of sugar, lemon if I had it. "Tell me more," I said. And that was the thing. I didn't argue, I didn't cry. I said, "Tell me more," and I meant it. Because I wanted to hear every word. I wanted to know exactly what they were thinking. And more importantly, I wanted them to think I didn't already know. My name is Thelma Jean Garrett. I go by Thelma Jean, always have. And I am 67 years old. I've lived in the house at 2214 Sycamore Ridge Drive for 38 years. My late husband Bernard and I bought it in 1986 for $74,000, which felt like all the money in the world at the time, and we paid it off in 2011. 25 years of mortgage payments, most of them on a nurse's salary and a postal worker's income. Some months we had beans and cornbread 4 nights running, but we paid it. We always paid it. Bernard passed 2 years ago. Congestive heart failure, the doctors said. I said it was a broken heart because he'd never truly recovered from losing his brother the year before. He was 69 years old. We had 41 years together in that house, and I still reach for him in the night sometimes. So when my daughter and her husband sat down across from me that March evening and started talking about communities designed for people in my stage of life, I understood something immediately. This hadn't come out of nowhere. This had been building for a long time, and I had simply refused to look directly at it. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures. A place called The Reserve at Peachtree Crossing. Cheerful photographs. A pool. A shuffleboard court. A dining room that looked like a hotel lobby. All the residents smiling in a way that reminded me of people smiling for a camera when they'd rather be somewhere else. "It's really lovely, Mama," she said. "They have a memory care wing, just in case." "I don't need memory care," I said quietly. "Not now, of course not, but it's good to be prepared." Carlton finally looked up. He had that expression I'd learned to read over 12 years of him being part of my family, the one where he'd already made up his mind and was just waiting for you to catch up. "Thelma, this house is a lot of upkeep for one person," he said. "The yard alone. And the roof's going to need replacing in a year or two, the way things are going." "I know about the roof," I said. "I've been managing this house for 38 years. "We know," my daughter said. She put her hand over mine. "We just want you to be comfortable, safe." Safe, that word. "Let me think about it," I told them. What I didn't say was that I'd already started thinking. And what I was thinking had nothing to do with the reserve at Peachtree Crossing. After they went to bed that night, they were staying the weekend, which I now understood was not a coincidence. I sat in Bernard's chair in the living room, the green Lazy-Boy he'd had since 2003. I wouldn't let anyone take it after he died. I sat in it and I listened to the house settle around me. Old houses talk, if you know how to listen. Creaks in the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the way the heat comes up through the vents in winter. I knew every sound this house made. I'd been listening to it for nearly 4 decades. I got up and went to the bedroom. Inside the top drawer of my nightstand, I kept the things that mattered. The deed to the house, our marriage certificate, Bernard's death certificate, which I still couldn't look at for too long without my chest tightening. And beneath all of it, a folder I kept organized with paper clips and labeled tabs, the way nurses keep things, because we learn early that documentation saves lives. My grandmother used to say, "Thelma Jean, keep a record of everything, because the day will come when someone will try to rewrite your story, and you need to be the one with the proof." I opened the folder. Receipt from April 2015. Check number 1104, $9,500. Memo, Denise, car replacement after accident. She'd totaled her Camry and the insurance hadn't covered the gap. I wrote the check without being asked twice. Check number 1247, November 2017, $18,000. Memo, D&C wedding expenses. Carlton's family had offered to contribute and then quietly backed out 2 months before the ceremony. I stepped in. I didn't make an announcement about it. Check number 1391, August 2019. $14,000, memo, D&C down payment assistance, their first house together, a nice split level in Cobb County. They needed help at closing, I gave it. I kept going. $3,000 for Carlton's dental work when he was between jobs and their insurance lapsed. $4,000 for emergency plumbing in their rental property. Yes, they had a rental property by then, which I'd also quietly subsidized. $1,700 for my granddaughter Maya's preschool when the childcare subsidy fell through. $2,200 for a family vacation they said they couldn't afford but needed. I added it up slowly, twice, the way I used to verify medication dosages in the ICU. $53,400. Over 9 years, not loans, gifts, every single one because they were my family and that's what you do for family. I put the folder back. I looked at the deed to the house. Property recorded in the name of Bernard Louis Garrett and Thelma Jean Garrett, Gwinnett County, Georgia. When Bernard died, the house came to me, fully paid off. No liens, no second mortgage, no debt of any kind. Or so I believed. The next morning, after my daughter and Carlton took Maya to her soccer game, I called my friend Hattie. Hattie and I had known each other since 1994. We'd met at New Covenant Baptist, and she'd become one of the closest friends I had in the world. She'd also, about 15 years ago, gotten her real estate license, and she'd built a solid business in the area. She knew property the way I knew the human body, with precision and without sentimentality. "Hattie," I said when she answered, "I need your help, and I need it to stay quiet for now." A pause. Hattie knew my voice well enough to hear what was in it. "What's going on?" "My daughter and Carlton want me out of my house." A longer pause. "Tell me everything." I told her about the dinner, the pictures of the reserve, Carlton's comment about the roof. "Thelma Jean," she said slowly, "you've owned that house free and clear for over 10 years. Do you have any idea what it's worth right now?" "No," I admitted. "That neighborhood has moved significantly. I'd put it at 580, maybe 600,000, conservatively." I sat with that number. "They want the equity," I said, not a question. "Almost certainly." "Thelma, I want you to call my lawyer friend Ramona before you do anything else, before you agree to anything, before you sign a single piece of paper." "What kind of lawyer?" "Elder law and property protection. She handles exactly this kind of situation, and I wish I could tell you it was rare." Hattie texted me Ramona's number before we even hung up. I called that same afternoon. There was a cancellation the following Tuesday. I took it. Ramona's office was downtown, 4th floor of a building on Peachtree Street. She was in her mid-50s, natural hair, silver-framed glasses, a suit the color of dark plum. She shook my hand and looked at me the way people look when they are actually paying attention. She asked me to bring everything I had. I brought it all. She spread it across her desk and went through it carefully. She asked good questions. She did not rush. Then she opened her laptop and started typing. After a few minutes, she turned the screen toward me. I leaned in. It was a property report, county records, public filings, and there, highlighted in yellow, was a line I did not recognize. Application for reverse mortgage. Filed October 2023. Property, 22 Sycamore Ridge Drive. Applicant, Thelma Jean Garrett. I looked at Ramona. "I never filed for a reverse mortgage." "I didn't think so," she said. "But the application is there in the county records. It was denied. The numbers didn't work out the way someone hoped, but it was submitted, in your name." My hands went very still on the arms of the chair. "There's more." She pulled up another document, a home equity inquiry filed June of last year, my name again. A preliminary approval for a home equity line of credit, $80,000. "The bank sent verification letters to the property address," Ramona said quietly. "Carlton handles most of the mail when he visits," I said. "He offered to help me sort through things after Bernard died. I thought he was being kind." Ramona folded her hands on the desk. "Someone has been laying groundwork to access equity in your home without your authorization. The reverse mortgage application used a forged signature. I can tell from the sample you brought today. The HELOC approval is still pending final verification, which requires you to appear in person. That's the only reason it hasn't been completed." The room was very quiet. "What does that mean for me?" I asked. "It means you have a narrow window. If you act now, we can stop everything. But if someone gets you in front of a notary under false pretenses, if you sign something without fully understanding it, You could end up with an $80,000 lien against your paid-off home. And if it went into default, the bank could force a sale. I thought about Carlton, about the way he'd said the roof needed replacing, about how helpful he'd been with my paperwork after Bernard died, about my daughter's rehearsed voice at that dinner table, and the pictures of the reserve at Peachtree Crossing. "What can I do?" I asked. Ramona smiled just slightly, quite a lot, actually. She laid it out for me. File a fraud alert with the county, flagging the unauthorized application. Contact the bank directly to cancel the HELOC inquiry. And the one that mattered most, establish an irrevocable trust, with the house as the primary asset and my granddaughter Maya as the sole beneficiary upon my death. "An irrevocable trust means no one can touch it," Ramona said. "Not your daughter, not Carlton, not a bank acting on a fraudulent application. You stay in the house as trustee for as long as you choose. But the moment that deed transfers into trust, it is protected." "How quickly can we move?" I asked. 10 days for the paperwork." "Do it." That evening I made dinner, the way I always did when my mind was working. Something about moving around my kitchen settled me. I made smothered chicken, onions and bell pepper, and the pan gravy I'd been perfecting since 1981. Maya sat at the counter and told me about her soccer game. She was 10. All long legs and opinions, and she had Bernard's eyes exactly, that warm, watchful brown that made you feel like you were truly being seen. "Grandma, why do you always cook so much?" she asked, pulling a piece of chicken off the platter before I'd finished. "Because food is love," I told her, "and I have a lot of love." She grinned and looked around the kitchen, at the marks on the doorframe where I'd measured her height every birthday since she was 3, at my African violets on the windowsill, at the photograph of me and Bernard on our 35th anniversary. "Carlton says this house is too big for one person," she said. I kept my voice even. "What do you think?" She studied the room for a moment, a 10-year-old conducting a serious assessment. "I think it's exactly the right size," she said. "Me too, baby," I told her. "Me too." The conversation with my daughter happened 4 days later. Carlton had gone to handle some work matter, and Maya was at a birthday party. My daughter was making coffee in my kitchen, moving around it like she'd been doing it all her life, which she had. She found the card on the counter. It had slipped from my purse the day before. Ramona's business card, Elder Law and Property Protection. She picked it up, turned it over, read it twice. "Mama, why do you have an elder law attorney's card?" "I think you know why," I said. Her face went still. "I found the applications," I said. "The reverse mortgage, filed in my name in October. The home equity line in June. My name, my property, neither of which I authorized." Her mouth opened, closed. "Was it Carlton, or did you know?" I asked, not accusing. I genuinely needed to know the difference. She looked away, out the window, at Bernard's bird feeders in the backyard, which I still kept filled because I didn't know how to stop. "I didn't know the details," she said finally. "He said he was looking into financial options, planning for the future. Planning with my property as collateral, without asking me." She was quiet. "Denise." I said her name the way I'd said it when she was small and needed to truly listen. "Sit down." She sat. I got the folder, came back, laid the receipts across the kitchen table, check by check, year by year. "April 2015, I said. Your car, $9,500. November 2017, your wedding, $18,000. August 2019, your down payment, $14,000. I kept going. Carlton's dental work, Maya's preschool, the rental property plumbing, the vacation, receipt after receipt in my neat handwriting. I pushed the final tally across the table. $53,400. She stared at the number. Her hands were folded in her lap and she wasn't blinking. "I never kept those records to throw them at you," I said. "I kept them because my grandmother told me to. Because she knew there would come a day when someone might look at me and decide I hadn't contributed, that I was just taking up space, that I needed to be managed. Mama, I never thought. You sat at this table 4 days ago and told me it was time to consider a memory care community. You and Carlton have been talking to each other about my house and my equity and what to do with it, and the only variable was how to move me out of the way." I paused. "I'm not angry. I want you to hear that, but I am clear. For the first time in a long time, I am very clear about what's happened here." Tears ran down her face. She didn't wipe them right away. I should have pushed back, she said finally. I knew it felt wrong. I let him convince me that you'd be fine, that you'd even be happier. That's something you and Carlton need to work through together, I said. What's between you and me is this. I am not going anywhere I don't choose to go, and this house is being protected. Carlton came home at 5:30. He read the room immediately, the papers on the table, my daughter's expression, and his face went into that careful calculation I knew so well. Thelma, he said evenly. Sit down, Carlton. We need to discuss some paperwork. I won't account for every word of that conversation. What I will say is that by the end of it, Carlton understood 3 things. 1. I knew about the applications. 2. I had legal representation, and the fraud alerts were already filed. 3. The house was going into an irrevocable trust within the week, and there was nothing he could do about it. He tried several angles, said it wasn't what it looked like, said he'd been trying to help me plan ahead, said the market conditions were too good to let sit idle, said I didn't fully understand the financial implications. I was a registered nurse for 31 years, I said. I understand documentation liability, the difference between someone looking out for you and someone looking out for themselves. I understand all of it very well. He went quiet. My daughter was looking at her husband with an expression I recognized. It was the expression of things falling into place that you'd been hoping wouldn't. Grief, yes, but also the particular clarity that comes after you've stopped making excuses for what you already knew. The trust was signed and recorded on March 21, 2024. The house at 2214 Sycamore Ridge Drive transferred into an irrevocable trust with Maya as the primary beneficiary. I remained as trustee in my home for as long as I chose to live there. If I decided to sell one day, I could. If I decided to stay until I was 100 years old, I could do that instead. But no one, not my daughter, not Carlton, not a bank acting on documents I never signed, could touch it without my explicit, documented, witnessed authorization. Ramona called me when the county confirmed the recording. It's done, she said. Thank you, I said. How are you feeling? I looked out my kitchen window, at Bernard's bird feeders, at the pecan tree he'd planted when we moved in, now 40 years old and enormous, dropping nuts every fall that I gathered and made into pies. Like myself, I said. Like the person who built something and gets to decide what happens to it. My daughter and Carlton moved into a rental in Marietta 3 weeks later. It wasn't dramatic. There was no final confrontation. She came to me on a Sunday after church and told me they'd found a place. She said Carlton was seeing a therapist. She said she was too. I need to ask you something honestly, she said. We were on the back porch, in the 2 rocking chairs Bernard had made by hand, one for him and one for me. I'd been sitting in both of them since he passed. Ask, I said. Did you ever really think about it? The senior living place? Even before all this? I thought about it. Gave her a real answer. No, I said. This is where your father's ashes are buried under that pecan tree. This is where I know every draft that comes through in January and which burner on the stove runs hot. I was never leaving unless I chose to, and I haven't chosen to. She rocked slowly. I'm sorry, Mama. I know you are. I don't know how to fix it. You don't fix it all at once, I told her. You show up differently. Then you show up that way again. Eventually it becomes who you are. I looked at her. That's what I told new nurses. That's what it took to get good at my job. It's the same thing it takes to be a good daughter. She started crying again quietly. I let her. Maya comes every Saturday. She stays Friday nights sometimes when her parents let her, and we make pancakes with blueberries from the farmer's market on Highway 78. She started asking me questions about Bernard, about when I was young, about nursing, about the house, about how we built the back deck in 1994 with 2 borrowed saws and a lot of prayer. I answer everything, because a child who knows her roots knows where she stands. On April 14, 2025, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote a letter. I sealed it and gave it to Ramona to hold in the same fireproof file as the trust documents. On the front of the envelope, I wrote, for Maya to be opened on her 18th birthday. Inside, I wrote this. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, you're 18 years old, and I'm either very old or I'm gone. Either way, you're ready now to know some things about who you come from. There is a trust in your name. I established it in March of 2024. When I transferred the deed to this house into a legal document that protects everything your grandfather and I built, I did it because I learned something important. The people who love us are not always the people who protect us, and sometimes those two things come apart in ways we don't expect. I don't write that to make you feel hard toward your parents. I write it so you understand the lesson. When you are a woman of a certain age in this country, people will begin to treat you as something that can be managed, accommodated into a smaller space. They will do it with kindness in their voices and good intentions they actually believe. They will call it helping. The way to meet this is not with anger, though anger is sometimes warranted. The way to meet it is to know exactly what you own, what you've built, what you've given, and what you are owed. Keep records. Not out of bitterness. Keep them the way I kept patient charts, because accuracy matters, and the record tells the truth when memory becomes convenient for someone else. Your great-great-grandmother told me to keep my receipts. I kept them. When the day came that I needed them, they were right there. Your grandfather Bernard planted the pecan tree in the backyard the first fall we lived in that house. He said to me, "Thelma Jean, we plant trees we'll never see fully grown. That's what love is. You do the work now for someone you might not ever meet." That tree is for you, Maya. This trust is for you. Every morning I drove to that hospital before sunrise, every check I wrote, every meal I made, every prayer I said in that green chair, all of it was, in some way, for you. Don't let anyone make you small. Don't let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness, or your generosity for obligation. Know your own worth. Keep your receipts. Build something, and then stand next to it without apology. All my love, always and always, Grandma Thelma Jean. P.S. The blueberry pancake recipe is in the kitchen drawer, on the note card with the rooster on it. Use real butter. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. It's been over a year now. My daughter calls every Sunday. Carlton is quieter around me, more careful. Not warm yet, because warmth takes time and cannot be rushed, but present. He fixed a gutter last month without being asked. I thanked him without making it a larger moment than it was. We are all learning a new language together, slowly. Hattie comes by Wednesday evenings. We watch our shows and argue about the garden, and talk about nothing important, which is to say we talk about everything that matters. The pecan tree dropped a good crop this fall. I made 4 pies and brought 2 to the church harvest dinner. The other 2 I kept. 1 for Maya, 1 waiting on the counter for whenever my daughter comes and sits on the porch long enough to really talk. She's getting closer to that. I spent 38 years building a home. I built it with a man I loved, on land we paid for together, with money earned in hospital corridors at 3 in the morning, holding the hands of strangers who were facing the worst moments of their lives. I know what it cost. I know what it's worth. And I know this. The moment I stopped waiting for someone else to tell me what to do with what I'd built, the moment I picked up the phone and called Hattie, and then Ramona, and then signed the papers and stood my ground, that was the moment I came back to myself. Not someone's mother to be managed, not a resource to be leveraged, not a body to be placed somewhere convenient. Thelma Jean Garrett, who built something, who kept her receipts, who planted herself in the same soil as that pecan tree and decided, at 67 years old, that she was not done growing. That's the whole story. And I'm still in the middle of it, which is exactly where I intend to stay.